I'm Charan Sandhu, a partner in Weil's technology and IP transactions practice. Today, I am very pleased to be hosting this edition of the Weil Alumni Interview Series with my very dear friend, Damali Peterman, who is an associate in our corporate department. Damali is the founder and CEO of Breakthrough ADR, a global conflict resolution firm that helps organizations resolve conflict in everyday situations. She recently joined JAMS, the world's largest alternative dispute resolution organization, as a mediator, arbitrator, and ombudsperson. Damali, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on being one of the youngest people ever invited to become a member of JAMS, and the wonderful media attention you received, especially your Forbes article.
Charan, thank you so much. I'm so delighted and honored to be here today with you. Just love my Weil family, and I think we're going to have a fun time today.
Well, Damali, when you and I are together, we always do have fun, like we used to when you were at the firm. First off, can you share what motivated you to found Breakthrough ADR and tell us about the work of your organization?
Certainly. Well, as an attorney and mediator, I'm often called to help resolve conflicts involving others. While working through these conflicts, I recognized that there were crucial steps that individuals could have taken to prevent their disputes from escalating. I saw a need to teach people active listening, effective communication, and conflict de-escalation, among other mediation skills. Just think about the last time that you had a conflict and how you handled it. Would you have handled it differently if you had the techniques at your fingers to help you, or a neutral and trusted advisor on call to help you weigh the options? I want Breakthrough ADR to reduce personal conflict, whether at the workplace, home, or anywhere else, by empowering individuals to become conflict resolvers. Conflicts lead to inefficiencies, the loss of good employees, stress on relationships, and at times, the involvement of law enforcement in non-emergency matters. And much of this can be addressed by people trained in conflict resolution. So I started Breakthrough ADR to be a source of creative solutions for training people how to navigate conflict and for being a trusted third party to help resolve conflicts. I want my company to provide options that people never knew existed.
You were telling me before that you actually had mediation experience before Weil. Could you describe a little bit about that? And then also, what were the skills, the conflict resolution and other skills you learned at Weil that helped you in this next phase of your career?
So I'm, I guess, a little bit of a unicorn in the ADR, the alternative dispute resolution field, because there are a lot of people, if they are attorneys, because you don't have to be an attorney to be a mediator. They were attorneys first, they practiced for a while, primarily litigators actually, and then they, kind of want to move away from the adversarial system of resolving disputes and move more towards, a collaborative approach with mediation. I, on the other hand, studied mediation during my master's program. So before going to law school, I focused on conflict resolution. I studied in The Hague, and that's sort of the center of peace theory, if you will. And then I worked abroad for a bit in Costa Rica and other countries before going to law school. And then starting at Weil, I was, as you recall, Charan, a 1L summer associate at Weil. I worked in the New York office and then in the London office. And I always tell people that I fell in love with, sort of private equity, M&A, and I came back to work there. It's also a second summer. I spent my second summer there as well. I'm working in the New York office and the Shanghai office, and it was just a wonderful community. And some of the things that I learned at Weil with respect to conflict resolution happened on a daily basis because I was working with the top legal minds in the industry, both within Weil and also across the table. So I learned how to ask tough questions. I learned how to really hone my negotiation skills, and I learned how to sort of advocate for myself and for my client. And so as a mediator, especially in the types of matters that I handle from employment. And by the way, the subject matter expertise that I have as a mediator, a lot of that I gained from the type of matters that I worked on at Weil. So even though I was a private equity M&A associate, when I started in 2008, shortly after our orientation, that's when the firm, filed Chapter 11 for Lehman Brothers, and other big restructurings and reorganizations occurred. So I went in to buy and sell companies, but I ended up doing a lot of work supporting major bankruptcies, and I learned a lot about the entire life cycle of a company. So that when I was drafting agreements, purchase agreements, and the like, I was thinking about all the what ifs that could happen, and thinking about different hypothetical scenarios as I was thinking about the language that I was drafting. So that, along with working in-house after I went to work with one of Weil's clients at Deloitte, really helped me to put myself in the shoes of a party, whether it's their counsel or the business, when they're going through mediation and arbitration, and really thinking about ways to connect with all sides and encourage them and empower them to really tap into their self-determination, restore their agency, because when you're in a conflict, there's a lot going on, and we really want to think about what the solutions can be, but for a variety of reasons, you haven't been able to get there on your own. So you're trusting a neutral third party like me to come in and help. So I know that was a lot to say, but essentially the conflict resolution skills that I picked up at Weil include effective communication, how to really get to the point, like what is it that I want to communicate?
Mhm.
How do I convey it? And just getting out there, helping people to feel heard. And also just saying yes, Charan. I mean, I think you were also one of the partners that taught me this, like when different opportunities arise, raise your hand, volunteer, say yes. People come to realize and that you're reliable, they depend on you. And then when new opportunities come up, then they think of you, and they think of you favorably. And so I never shied away from anything new. And I always try to seek out mentors and sponsors to learn new things. And I think that those things, combined with my training in mediation and ADR in general, really helped me in my career as a neutral.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I actually remember you as a WNL and being proud of you sort of every stage of your development. But I remember you always having a very compelling personality, and always being willing to step into, I won't say the fray, but just sort of stepping into new situations and actually enjoying it, and enjoying the challenge and learning from it. I was actually wondering, given your experience, like what ended up drawing you so strongly, and it sounds like maybe it was partly pre-Weil, but so strongly to this career in dispute resolution. Our audience, it's a large group that are thinking about their careers and how to be purposeful, like we all are. And what advice you would give to other lawyers, considering the field too?
So as far as what drew me to dispute resolution, I usually say, and formally, I'm the oldest of 7 children. So I was born kind of in the middle of my parents and all of my siblings. And I think that, that helped me to advocate for others, and to always try to find a solution to any conflict that would arise. Formally, as you mentioned, and as we've discussed, I trained in mediation and ADR prior to starting at Weil. I really learned a lot about negotiations, among other things, at Weil. I had really great sponsors and mentors who, thought about me for great matters, some of the largest matters at the time. And I think for me as a mediator, sitting in the position of a corporate transactional attorney, or even if you are a litigator, these are skills that are essential skills. How to actively listen to someone is going to help you be a better cap markets attorney, a better president at your organization. This is going to help you regardless of what you do in any interpersonal relationship that you have. Learning how to communicate, how to navigate difficult conversations, challenging personalities, all of these things are skills that are portable regardless of what you're doing. And so for anyone who's considering, mediating more, first, you don't have to quit your day job. There are a lot of different ways that you can do that. But Breakthrough ADR in New York, we are Part 146 approved by the court system, which means that we can train mediators to then apply to serve on court rosters. And there are a lot of programs, that offer different types of commercial mediation training as well. It's always wonderful to think about different ways that you can improve your communication skills, to improve your advocacy skills. And again, dispute resolution is something that you don't have to quit your day job to do. You can continue to work and serve as an attorney. When I was at Weil, I was also doing some sort of pro bono work, mediating community disputes. And so there are a lot of ways that you can use it for pro bono hours as well.
One of the things I remember really strongly about you is just your ability to step in any room and make a difference, which I am still very proud of you for, was very proud of you, at the time. I think this, one of many reasons led to you being chosen as now one of the youngest lawyers ever to join JAMS. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, but also I seem to be doing two-part questions with you, but also being a person of color in a field where, many fellow practitioners have gone without this recognition that you have, and would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, to be very honest, the ADR practice, so, alternative, or I like to call it appropriate dispute resolution, really tracks the legal practice, the legal industry. And so the legal industry, in my opinion, still isn't significantly diverse, right? And you have a lot of people that are leaving the bench as judges, going into, amazing, prominent global firms like JAMS. You have a lot of attorneys who had a long, illustrious career, 25, 30, 40 years, most of them partners or department chairs, and then going into work for an ADR firm like JAMS. And so for me, there are a lot of things that distinguish me from your typical JAMS neutral, and not in a good or bad way. It just makes me different. Yes, I am one of the youngest members to be recruited by JAMS. I did not have a traditional path in the sense that most of their neutrals were former judges, so they're retired judges. And then again, most of the attorneys that transition to JAMS are retiring from as a partner or head of a group at a firm. For me, I really spend a lot of time doing international work, a lot of cross-border transactions. I spend a lot of time building sort of a brand, if you will. So making sure that I'm connecting with what I consider to be an important part of our culture, which is talking to people who are tuning into the news or reading social media or reading magazines and articles for a variety of different things, but not focused on dispute resolution, because again, these are portable skills that you can use in a variety of settings. So I spent a lot of time building a brand and a practice to empower everyday people with everyday solutions by teaching all over the world, by serving as an adjunct professor, teaching basic mediation training at Howard University School of Law, my alma mater, and also training the New York Police Department right here in conflict de-escalation and mediation, and empowering them in many non-emergency situations to use the words. And so it's always been something that I thought was important, not knowing that it would attract the attention of a global, incredible company like JAMS, because I'm not the traditional person that JAMS recruits. And to me, I think that shows that there's promise in our industry, meaning that you don't always have to do the same thing that everyone else did before you to get noticed by an organization of their status. You don't always have to be like everyone else, look like everyone else. And I think that's empowering, because that sends a message that people who are talented will be recognized, and people who work hard, and do good work, as you always learned at Weil, like do good work and then good things will happen. And another thing that I think is essential is, I think this quote is attributed to Teddy Roosevelt, but I don't know if it initially started with him, but, people don't really care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And my takeaway from that quote is, I've been devoted to ADR for over 20 years, even when I practice at Weil, even when I practice in-house at Deloitte, even when I teach all over the world, and I teach at law schools, usually like a training course on mediation, but also I judge international mediation competitions because I'm devoted to sort of making sure that people in school, like law students, people in business school, even in undergraduate programs, recognize the importance of ADR, because if you think about it, on TV, on the news, you always hear about litigations, lawsuits, you see all these shows devoted to law and order, et cetera. And those are all great, but I'd love to see a show focused on some other dispute resolution alternatives where people can have a mediator or an arbitrator or even a facilitator to help them sort of get past any impasse that they're having. So again, I took a very non-traditional path, and that got the attention of an organization like GEMS. And I hope that serves as an example for people who perhaps thought, oh, I only have to do X, Y, and Z in order to accomplish something. No, you can do you, be authentic to yourself. And if you do what you love and you love what you do, then people will recognize it.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I think you and I have talked about that, the importance of just being yourself and being present, and you did that. You picked and clearly just you're passionate about this. You have 20 years of experience, and I think that's something we shared in Weil, just the ability to use the platform to be who we really were meant to be. So it's so wonderful, hearing what you've taken from that. The other part of you that I've always loved, and remind me, how many languages do you speak again?
Well, on these days, probably like 3.5.
Okay. But in the good days, it was north of that. I remember that. Yeah. So you're being very conservative. But I know you have a great ability to, not only speak the languages, but just have a broad cultural fluency, a global cultural fluency. And you've studied and taught in countries, and have a podcast audience actually that reaches outside the US. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the cultural differences in dispute resolution, because a lot of our practices are, like mine included, very international. I deal with people from Asia, Europe, South America, and there are definite differences. Could you talk a bit about the important cultural differences in dispute resolution?
Certainly. Well, Charan, I learned a lot from you and others, Marcia Sims, Mike Aiello, Mike Lubowitz, Tom Roberts, a lot of people who, just navigated every room they walked into. They just sort of was able to communicate with other people, to find some common ground, and also to just articulate like what it was they were there to accomplish. And I think that is similar to navigating cross-cultural communication. To me, it is as important as understanding the subject matter or the contract or the laws that you are supposed to know. Because, like you said, I've worked in Asia, I've worked in Europe, I've worked in Africa, and you have to take the time to know what's appropriate, to know like how you take a business card from someone if you're in Japan, to know, if you're supposed to look in someone's eyes when you're talking to them, to know how some common phrases in the US or references to, baseball or whatever the case may be, may not really work, to know that a lot of the negotiations don't always happen in the negotiating room at the conference table, but it may happen, on the, in a karaoke room, or it may happen at a lunch. They're trying to develop a rapport. And what I've found is that recently I was a moderator on a panel there were a lot of co-sponsors for this, but GEMS, Arbitral Women, among others. And the topic of my panel was ADR in Latin America and how to really tap into that. And one of the questions that we talked about was whether there was a difference between the way that you practice in Latin America as opposed to other regions. And the answer is no, there's no difference as far as like the training, right? So you're still going to do the same process if it's mediation or arbitration, but the cultural considerations that you must know are essential. And a lot of that I was able to learn at Weil. I mentioned that I worked in the London office, the Shanghai office. I worked in a lot of cross-border transactions where I spent a significant amount of time in Mexico, for example, and other regions. I mean, I spent time in the Dallas office, for matters that I was negotiating with Fred Green and others. And so I think that you have to sort of have a good sense of, one, what's important to your counterpart. Of course, your position and your client's position, what's important to your counterpart, and how any type of cross-cultural dynamics come into play, because I think it just makes you look better as an advocate. It makes you sound better as an attorney. And I also think it takes time and effort, and that's really how you build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned the most from Weil is the importance of, and you and I started off by talking about our Weil family, but it's so important to maintain your relationships, to think about your network while you're there. And of course, if you aren't there anymore. And there are different, I've known you in particular, Charan, when I was a law student, when I started at the firm, when I got married, when I had children. Like, I've known you through different parts of my life, and I've continued to grow and change in different ways. And I've still been able to come and talk to you and others at the firm when I'm considering like different aspects of, not just my work, but of course my identity as I continue to evolve. And so I think that's similar to how you navigate cultural differences. Like, everyone is three-dimensional, and just taking the opportunity to understand not just that one dimension that you might see as people are looking at us in Zoom, but the other dimensions that make them who they are, whether that's their identity as an attorney, as a business person, as a parent, as a teacher, whomever it is just taking that extra step to get to know them. And I think that's what you and I have in common, and why, we've had success in the legal field and outside the legal field is, we sort of take the time to get to know people and promote others. You do an extraordinary job of promoting others, from women to associates to partners. And I just really love having this time with you to tell you that, because oftentimes you don't get to always tell people about the difference that they made in your life. So you've made a significant difference in my life, Charan.
Right back at you, Damali. I can't even, and you know this, I can't even imagine having a life without you in it. I think that's the benefit of the Weil family. Like, there is such a sense of belonging that it has helped, definitely me explore what I want to in life and my limits and where I want to be. We're so proud to have seen, what you've done and where you've come to. And we want to just thank you for your time today and sharing with us your holistic but very intelligent approach to ADR, and your company Breakthrough ADR is a great service for the world, especially through jams. You make us proud, like I said, and to the Weil alumni that have joined us, thank you for joining us for this edition. Having talked to Damali was one of the many reasons that I am proud to be part of the Weil family. So please do continue to stay connected.